Hey there, everybody. Welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending January 28th. So we're pretty much at the end of January, last full week of January, and well into our Aquarius season. Yay! Which I'm really excited about. But we're going to go ahead and get to all of the horoscopes, and we're going to start with Aries. Jupiter continues to be in Aries and moves into a grand sextile with Mars, which is focused on self, as well as Pluto, with a little bit of an element of the sun in there influencing that as well, just a little tinge of it. I think, and Pluto's focus is right in the middle of long-term goals and career. So we're really focused on your long-term career goals here. With Jupiter's influence and Aries influence continuing to be on our inner trauma closet, it may seem like it's a challenge, but a grand sextile really is all about the planets coming together to help you out in a particular situation. And the fact that in perfect conjunction with Jupiter is Juno, which is a less influensive planet. It's a dwarf planet. It is actually a small planet that does exist and is known as the Great Consort. We're looking specifically at relationship problems that may be coming to the surface, and we're talking about the inner trauma that has roots in the current situation. So these planets are actually coming together to help you be able to identify and be able to do that. You have Mars influence in there, that's your ruling planet. Mars focus on self really is about putting that energy into you. A lot of you Aries put a lot of energy into everybody else. And it really is important that you put that energy into yourself as well. It's part of your healing process. And perhaps that inner trauma that's coming up to the surface, demanding to be released right now, is what's preventing you from being able to put that energy into yourself. By looking at it in that different point of view, it helps you to make a little bit more of an educated decision. And when you release what's holding you back, it makes it easier to accept that decision as something that is good for you, not just good for you, but it's good for everybody when it comes down to it. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Taurus, the moon is gonna kind of be a pain in the butt twice this week. We're going to start off with some challenges with it. We're going to end with the moon in Taurus, creating some challenges for you, all as the focus is on your inner trauma or that secret closet, which means that it is probably going to be an emotional experience. Not exactly excited to be telling you guys about this, but as we kick off the beginning of the week, Uranus, which is retrograde on Sunday and then moves into direct motion on Monday. So we're done with the retrograde this week. That is some good news, depending on how we look at it. And then the moon comes into your sign and moves into conjunction with Uranus and both planets in a square with the sun, which is in Aquarius. So the moon starts off in Aquarius in a square, comes in, joins in another square. There's a little bit of a break in the middle, though. I guess that's the good news, right? I have to say that, those two signs, because of these planets that keep moving in with Uranus, which really takes a long time to move through, it has been difficult. And in the end, you really just feel like you are crawling on your hands and knees towards the end because that's all the energy that you have left. And sometimes the best thing about that is the next step is usually easier after that. So this is the end of that, the last couple of weeks of that, the moon coming into influence that twice. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to deal with it, but we're talking about inner trauma. And sometimes that emotional experience has to come up so that you can identify it, you can embrace it, you can let it go, move into something else so that it's not influencing the decisions that you're making. And this is particularly important because Uranus is in a trine with Mercury all week long. No longer retrograde. We're officially done with the retrograde. We're done with the shadow period. We're done with all of it this week. This is our first Mercury retrograde free week. And this trine between the two planets, Mercury's influences on long-term goals. Now, if any of these old traumas are influencing or allowing fear to influence your decision on your long-term goals, you definitely want to eliminate them as much as possible, because they're just going to keep holding you back or keeping you in that indecisive place. So it is for the good. It is not fun to go through. I will agree and concede to that. It's very difficult for Tauruses to go through that kind of experience, as much as it's difficult for Aquarians too. But we're in this together, guys, and really that is the point. We can be there to help each other out in this until we are free of it here in a week or so. I promise there is an end to the madness, and it is coming. We are literally almost there. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Gemini, Mars continues to influence your sign or be in your sign this week. Probably a few more weeks of Mars influence, no longer retrograde. This is actually a really good place for most Geminis. That retrograde Mars motion that we had for several months at the end of the year into the first week or so of this year, I feel like it really was energetically just draining for most Geminis, and really put a lot of the Geminis that I know in a situation to where it just felt like they kept backpedaling as they're trying to move forward. In some cases, almost that defeated energy in some ways. Mars is very aggressive energy, and to go from I have absolutely no motivation and no direction and can't figure out how to get out of this mess to, okay, I got a plan, let's go. It just feels like magic. And there's just even more magic, of course, when Mars is in a grand sextile all week long with Jupiter as well as the Sun. The Sun's focus is on career. Jupiter's focus is on your inner trauma closet a little bit at the beginning of the week, but then it moves into focus on those who are there to support you. That's actually kind of a really interesting transition when you think about it. Geminis tend to be loners. It can be difficult to work with a Gemini. They have a very particular way of doing things, and they don't like to get slowed down. And so it's actually a big deal to bring in those people that actually can help you to be able to move forward and achieve those goals. So that stunting period is over. It's full steam ahead. Self-care is really important, and Mars being in that position of focused on self is, of course, reminding you that it's very easy to burn yourself out. And when Mars is influencing, it's a given if you're not doing your self-care and taking care of yourself as well. So got to balance that energy, not necessarily move kind of a thing. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Cancer, focus is on the mind with a little bit of an element still of focusing on the past as well. In many ways, I see this as the evolution of the thought process of a Cancer. And Cancers are one of those signs that can be very heavily influenced by what is going on in their environment or around them, or their environments as they were growing up have a very, very, very heavy influence over who the person becomes as a Cancer. It's not always the case, but it is that way in many cases. And that influence really comes in to influence how the mind works for most people. And Cancers definitely have that way of picking up those sort of mindsets and not necessarily realizing that they're coming from other people. They're not necessarily their own kind of a thing. Pallas Athene is very much influencing this, and right on the cusp of both houses is really focused on taking a look backwards to see where these mindsets came from. The truth is that I've known a lot of people over the years that I've just known or worked with or what have you, and a lot of people say the same thing. This is how my mind works. And there's absolutely no way that I can change that. And the truth of the matter is that that is really a BS statement, because you can change anything, anytime, any place, anywhere, if you choose to do so. And of course, you have to put work into it, but you have to put work into not making a decision also. Both things have consequences that are difficult. They have their own difficulties. Why not choose a difficulty that helps promote you moving forward, rather than staying in the same place? But you also have to understand your past tendencies in terms of the level of Cancer that you are and the level of Crab that you are. And some are more introverted than others. And so that also has a tendency to hold you back as well. When you understand and identify how your mind works, and specifically how it speaks to you, it gives you the opportunity to rewire how your mind speaks to you. And it takes practice, and it takes you doing it every single day, and it takes you making that choice every single day to rewire, rather than allow your brain to influence what you're doing in a negative way. So that negative stinking thinking self-talk is what I'm talking about. We all have it. We all sit there and basically degrade ourselves in our minds. And it's not necessarily helpful, but it's not necessarily an easy habit to kick either. So this week is really a prime opportunity for you to be open to identifying when that's coming up, where it's coming up, how it's coming up, what is it influencing, and give yourself the space to rewrite what your brain is saying to you. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. So it's pretty easy to rewrite it. You just take a few words out and put another few words in, and then remember to use that script as much as possible when the original script comes up automatically, which it will. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Leo, focus is on the home this week. And at the very beginning of the week, we have a slight influence of the Lilith or dark moon in retrograde. So she's there right at the beginning of the week, and then she kind of moves out, which means she'll be back. She'll be back later. And that crazy need to change things influence will come back in some other way. But this week, focus is on the home. And I really feel that in many cases, when we're talking about focus on the home, we're looking at repairs that need to be done, improvements that need to be done. You know, we have our to-do list, and then we have our wish list kind of a thing. And in many cases, we stop ourselves from making improvements because we're waiting on something else. And I think that really, for human beings, that is the absolute best excuse that we can use for anything. It literally inhibits us from doing anything while we sit and wait for something that we may or may not even be preparing for. This week, it's really important for you to take a look at that list and make sure that you are preparing to get these things done, specifically if they're repairs. And we all know a lot of times repairs can be really, really expensive and really, really inconvenient. But if you put it off for too long, it can get even more expensive and even more inconvenient. And it's better to just try and make sure that you're planning ahead to get these things done. Maybe not this time of year, but in the time of the year where it's easier to do that. The other thing that I'm really picking up for you guys is, well, in all honesty, in the time that I'm recording these horoscopes, the weather is just absolutely horrid. And it really is one of those instances where it just makes you feel like you just never want to leave the house because you don't want to be out in it. You know, there's a million reasons why you just want to be home. And I really feel that this week is just one of those weeks, whether it is weather related or not, where you just need that space and that time and that sort of hermit time to just kind of unplug, reboot, or just feel the need for that comfort space in some way, shape, or form. We're ending the first month of the year, so we're going full steam ahead. Obviously, if we're going that quickly, we are going full steam ahead. Sometimes we just need those couple of days to just shut the whole entire world out and just be ourselves, just be with us, just read, just watch TV, just lounge around in a hot bath all day if you want to, whatever it is that you need to do. The home is the best place for it because that you have it set up specifically for that. So don't feel bad if you have some home time coming up this week and somebody invites you to do something else instead of that time. Don't feel bad about saying no, because honestly, you know what your body needs more than anybody else does. And we all know that as much as socializing is fun, we need to recoup as well. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Virgo, focus is on those you love this week, and there's really no planets coming in to influence that in any way, shape, or form this week, which is not necessarily a bad thing, not a good thing, not a bad thing, really. I feel though that for you guys this week, in terms of focus on those you love, it really can be a good thing or a bad thing when you think about it. All Virgos that I know are fairly social people. I mean, I'm sure there's some Virgo introverts out there in the world, but most of the Virgos I know are very social people. They love a lot of people in various different stages of that love, and they'll do just about anything for those people. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have. And then there are just those times where all these people and loving all these people just gets really overwhelming after a while. And I think it's the guilt trip that we all go through when we get to that point where it's like, I just need some time away. And it's that guilt trip of, I shouldn't be so selfish, even though most people think that Virgos are selfish, which is absolutely entirely not true from my point of view anyways. I mean, they are a lot of things, but I don't feel that I would call any of the Virgos that I know selfish completely. Maybe tendencies. And so that guilt trip and that fear of selfishness really keeps you from giving yourself what you really need, which is a little bit of a break from being social. And I feel like this comes up as an issue for a lot of Virgos, but this week I feel that it needs to not be an issue for you. I think that, in all honesty, the right people understand that you need your time, and the wrong people don't understand that. And it really is a good way to weed out and really pay attention to who you have surrounding you, because of course you also want to be surrounded by people that are going somewhere. You don't want to surround yourself with people that are staying in the same place or leeching or using or any of those things. So this week, give yourself permission to do this for multiple different reasons. One, because you need it and you want it and you deserve it. And two, because it might just show you the true colors of a few people and allow you to realize whether or not these people are actually good to be hanging around in your circle right now. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Libra, we have focused on our day-to-day schedule this week, although series sort of brings an element of focus on those you love. And series being a very maternal influence, those you love really pertaining to the people that you allow to infiltrate your schedule more so than anybody else. We'll just say, I kind of feel that this mix up here is going to create some issues when either the person that's infiltrating your schedule is doing it too much to the point where you just need them to stop doing it, or it feels like you're being torn in two different places, which is, I mean, absolutely a Libra thing. Actually, let's just throw a third one in there, you guys can handle it, right? Definitely a situation that you don't want to be in if you have any influence over that, we'll just say. But I do see this as a being toggled back and forth, or, somebody needs you over here, but somebody else needs you over here. And it really is not one of those situations where it's an easy decision to make. It's actually a pretty difficult decision to make, and it may even make you a little bit crazy, and you may even kind of blow your stack just a little bit. But then afterwards, it's really important to communicate properly about the situation. Don't try and be a people pleaser and do everything at once to make everybody happy. Obviously, that is a challenge and a problem that you've had multiple times. It always has the same ending, which is it doesn't work out for you. It works out for everybody else but you. We don't want to do that, but you can and should talk to both sides and explain the situation and try and come up with an honorable compromise, which you Libras rock at, really, rather than letting it make you crazy. Work smarter, not harder. And you got to repeat that to yourself over and over again sometimes until it sinks in. So maybe a little bit of a challenge, but it's a challenge that you can totally handle, providing you do it in the correct way. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Scorpio, focus continues to be on relationships this week, and nothing is influencing that whatsoever. We don't even have the moon coming in this week, so it's actually nice. It got a little crazy there for a minute the last couple of months of the year there, so it's actually kind of nice to just have this sort of quiet space, I like to call it, if that makes sense. And focus on relationships can be part of that quiet space, depending on how the relationship works, and also depending on how you work the relationship, if that makes sense. I am kind of seeing this for you guys as a chance to, I don't want to say take stock of your relationships, but to really pay attention to how the relationships around you work. Like, for instance, we all have the way we want to see it and the way we try and force ourselves to see it. And then we have the reality. So it's the rose-colored glasses versus the non-rose-colored glasses. And this is actually really important in doing this within all of your relationships, because I feel like there is less disappointment when we look at the relationship for what it is, and specifically when we look at the person for who they are, if that makes sense. For instance, if there's something in the relationship that you really want to see, you will try and make it that way, and or you'll be constantly bugging for it or something like that and never getting it, and it becomes a big problem. Obviously you don't want that, but you do want to see the good and the bad realistically in the relationship, so that you can love the person for who they are and not who you want them to be. And it is a big deal, and it's a completely different kind of love. In many cases, it's a lot freer of a love. In some cases, yes, it is a disappointment, but depending on the relationship, overall, it is better than what you were trying to get to see or hoping to see, if that makes sense. We do have a tendency to want perfection when we're dealing with other human beings, and that's just not going to happen. Okay. So this isn't necessarily one of those instances where you're having an issue with the person and you're having to evaluate it from an anger position. This is more like you're just kicking back and looking at this person and going, hey, okay, so this is what I think you should be, but this is who you really are. And I think I can accept and love who you are, especially because who you are is part of this and this. And I don't really care for this, but does the good outweigh the bad? Okay, it does. Great. And then it just bumps you to a completely different level on so many levels. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Sagittarius, focus continues to be on finances this week, and I feel like it's sort of a double-edged sword, if that makes sense. Yes, there is potential for money to come in, but there is also potential for something that's, an expense that maybe you weren't expecting, or an expense that you weren't planning for, or something like that. And it's so incredibly frustrating when that happens. It's like Murphy's Law when that happens. Oh my God, I got this bonus money, and boom, the dryer just like blows up and dies and says, haha, guess where your extra money is going? It is really inconvenient. But I also try and flip that for myself and tell myself, you know what? It's so lucky that I got this money right when this happened so that I could take care of it right now. And it does put a different spin on the whole thing, a different energy into it. It makes you feel differently, which is the big thing. I also feel that this week, one thing that's really an important focus on finances this week is coming up with a plan in terms of how the money is coming in, and more of like a schedule, if that makes sense. I keep seeing a schedule. Okay, that was too quick of a reaction. Sorry about that. And it's specifically a money coming in schedule. We tend to do both in and out, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. I mean, that is a good thing, but this schedule is just about the money coming in. And I feel like by doing this, you'll find small places where you might be able to allow some more money to come in some way. And the fact that you're just focused on the money coming in, it does change the energy in terms of how you use your finances all the way around. It's difficult to constantly see it as every time money comes in, I have to give it away. That is such a it makes you so financially stuck in this hamster wheel. It's not even funny. If you're just focusing on what is coming in, it gives you a chance to glance at it and go, oh my gosh, look at that. Oh, and I did an extra $150 this month. Yay me, right? It just puts a different spin on it and helps keep that money energy flowing in there. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Capricorn, we have, this is our first Mercury retrograde, official Mercury retrograde free week after the first Mercury retrograde of the year. So this is a really good week, as things just kind of sort of open up, especially because Mercury was retrograde in Capricorn. We continue to have Pluto in Capricorn, 28 degrees. Oh my gosh, he's like moving to the edge there. It's happening. Like I can feel all the Capricorns going, oh my God, this is going to be great. For a minute anyways. Focus is on long-term goals. Mercury's trine with Uranus and the moon right at the end of the week is kind of helpful actually, in terms of Uranus and the moon's focus is on inner trauma. And of course, the moon being focused on inner trauma, that sounds kind of scary, emotional experience. But I really feel that, especially because it's all around one day, that yes, there may be some triggers, but being able to work through the trigger and understand the trigger and understand how that's been holding you back is going to help open doors in terms of your long-term goals, which is really good. I also feel that because Mercury is very much a part of this aspect here, Mercury is all about planning and communication, which is, I mean, it's the Capricorn dream right there, organization, planning, and all of that stuff. But there is an element of making sure that you're communicating to the right people about your needs so that you can get what you need established without too many problems occurring in the middle of that. As far as Pluto's influence, Pluto is a part of a grand sextile all week long. Pluto is also focused on long-term goals. The grand sextile is with Jupiter, which is focused on that trauma closet as well, and Mars, which is focused on self. So this really has a lot more to do with your own personal goals for yourself and your personal growth goals than it does with ultimately whatever your goals are. But this is good. Your personal growth goals need to happen in order for the physical goals that you want to accomplish in other aspects of your life have to happen as well. So everything is sort of lining up for you to have this uncomfortable experience, but then work through it, release it, and move on. And it's like, boom, all of a sudden your feathers are out and you are ready to go. So the sun literally like came out when I was saying that too, really, really bright on me. Did you guys see that? I just happened to see that. That was pretty cool. All right, you guys have a great week with that. Moving on to Aquarius, we're in the first official week of Aquarius, which is really exciting. We're going to kick it off with the moon in Aquarius, which is a little less exciting. First of all, focus is on career. We've got the sun, we've got the moon, we've got Saturn and Uranus, 24 degrees. Saturn is about to leave. It's awesome. He's probably leaving next month, as a matter of fact. And so we have a lot of things going on in there. The sun is in a grand sextile with Mars, which is focused on self, as well as Jupiter, which is focused on our trauma closet. And Jupiter is all about growth. And like, I literally visualize this as somebody just taking stuff out of the closet and flinging it. I mean, we're talking like, you know, turning a completely full closet into an empty closet all of a sudden. I would not suggest that in terms of dealing with your inner emotional stuff. It's a little overwhelming. But there may be instances where there's multiple different triggers around a similar root, that so it does seem like it's a little bit overwhelming. With Mars focus on self, this is actually pretty interesting as well. Mars is no longer retrograde, so we're talking direct movement. This Mars energy going into ourselves, going into our career goals, it really is a big deal. It's a lot of energy going in that direction. And sometimes, being fixed signs, we need that extra boost of energy going towards anything, even if we're cleaning out the closet at the same time. And you know, we are pretty good at being able to do both. I mean, it's still uncomfortable and I still don't like it, but I can do it. And I know I'm pretty good at it. The moon unfortunately comes in and is a little bit of a challenge right at the beginning of the week, of course, when the moon is in Aquarius, and then right at the end of the week when it moves into conjunction with Uranus and the sun moves into a squared position with Uranus. So again, Uranus is all about that inner closet. This inner closet crap is going to come up more than once, unfortunately, this week. But it's for you guys, I almost feel like it's something that takes place in the beginning of the week that is emotionally frustrating, and then all of a sudden it pops back up again at the end of the week, and you're like, I thought I was done with this. I thought I was over with this crap. What the hell, right? But it's where you put your big girl panties on and you just deal with it, get it done, move on. You got bigger fish to fry, right? So that's what I have for you guys this week. And finally, Pisces, focus is on those who support you, your cheerleaders, your support system. And of course, Neptune continues to be influencing your sign there. Neptune's sextile with the sun this week. The sun's focus is on career. This is actually kind of interesting when you're talking about Neptune influencing those who support you. This really has a lot to do with using your intuition to really understand who is there to support you and who really isn't there to support you, if that makes sense. And your intuition will always tell you, but you, as a human being, we just don't want to believe that. And so therefore we kind of ignore that. I feel like a lot of Pisces this week are going to be dealing with this issue coming up and realizing that this issue has been coming up for a really long time, and it is time to pay attention to it. But we are specifically talking about those that are supportive towards our career with this sextile with the sun. And the sun is all about where you shine. So of course, we're talking about focusing on where you shine. Whatever your job is, it doesn't matter. This knowledge of who is there, really there to support you, is definitely going to help you be better at what you're doing when you are focused on it with the right people. So that's a really important message for you guys, actually. And I feel that it is important because Pisces are not necessarily ones to ask for help. They sort of hope that somebody sees they need help and kind of reads their minds. And I mean, it's not every Pisces, but I've known quite a few who have those tendencies from time to time. It's really important. This is our first Mercury retrograde free week of the year. It's really important to use your words and communicate so that everybody knows what you need and you don't have to feel like they're just ignoring your needs, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And that's what I have for everybody. Thank you for rocking out with the horoscopes. I'm Melissa Bruce, the heavy metal psychic. Hey, make it a great week, everybody.